Yvonne, The Handmaid's Tale has just premiered on Hulu to great critical acclaim and strong responses from audiences. Why do you think the show had such an immediate impact on people?
Oh, well, I think there's been some pretty dramatic changes politically in America, and just very recently in the last 6 or 7 months. And I think because of those changes, a lot of issues are coming up, and they're very much at the forefront of people's minds. And I think this show sort of directly reflects people's fears about what could be around the corner potentially. And also, I just think it's an incredibly entertaining show in its own right. It's beautifully shot. We have an amazing cast. It's beautifully directed. It's well written. I mean, there's a lot of detail that went into this show, and you can really see that when you watch it.
I want to talk a bit more about the relevancy that this show has to today. When you guys were shooting this, it was the election, was it not?
It was what? Sorry, it just cut out.
Right in the middle of the presidential election.
Oh, right. Yes, yes. We were shooting pre-election and post-election.
So how did that impact what you guys were doing on this show?
I think we were sort of joking around pre-election, that this show could be really relevant, ha ha. But then it happened.
We were all joking around prior elections, so.
Yeah. So I don't think we sort of planned. I mean, you couldn't have planned for it to be this way. I mean, they were well into writing this story. Well, first of all, Margaret Atwood wrote it in '84 and it was published in '85. So, this story has been around for so long. And I know that Margaret has always said in interviews that at some point in history, or when she was writing it, there were story points in The Handmaid's Tale that have always been relevant and always happened or are happening in history. So the fact that we're here in 2017 making a show about something that has always really been relevant, but is now just even more relevant, is crazy. It's one of the most fascinating sort of journeys that I've been a part of while making a show. It's not often that you get to be part of something that has this kind of a movement attached to it, and people really taking a lot of different things from it that speak to them, that directly parallel the real world.
Absolutely. Talk a little bit about the character that you play in the show, Serena Joy. Tell us about who she is.
Serena Joy. Serena Joy is one of the villains. She's the female villain, actually, in The Handmaid's Tale. And she is a brutal woman. We meet her in Gilead, in a society that's been overthrown. America has been overthrown by this extremist religious group, and there is a new sort of totalitarian government in place. And all the fertile women have been collected, and they're being used as breeding stock for the elite. And considering that my character Serena Joy is barren, then I have been issued a handmaid, Offred, played by Elisabeth Moss, to give me a child with my husband. Serena Joy is complicated. The more I dove into her as I was introduced to her and explored her, the more layers I seem to find. And even now, in the aftermath of talking about her in interviews, as everybody's watching the show, there just seems to be more and more that is being uncovered about her, I find.
Well, how did you find your way into her? Because, you seem like a really lovely person. And Serena is, for lack of a better word, not at times.
Not.
So how did you, I wonder how you found your way into this character to empathize with her a bit.
I really had to put a lot of my judgment aside, because this is one of these characters, I think, the first time in my life where I really disliked her, or rather disagreed with things she was doing. I mean, when you step back from it all and you see this woman in this society who is kind of okay with another woman being raped in front of her, you look at it that way, it's horrendous. so it was very hard to sort of take away that judgment and get into her heart and her soul. I mean, it was really important for me to humanize her, because in the novel, we don't see a lot of her backstory. We don't see a lot of her emotional side. But in our television show, in the story, that was something that I felt, and I know Bruce Miller also really felt that needed to be shown. You know, when I stripped back all the layers, I saw a woman who had been stripped of her own rights also, and she was also oppressed. I saw a woman who had been stripped of her ability to read and write and do her job, which she used to. She used to write. She used to be a spokeswoman. She's a woman who no longer is able to connect with her husband intimately, sexually. There's a lot that's been taken away from her. I saw this empty cage. But what makes it complicated is that she was part of designing that own cage, and now she has to sit in it. And it's a constant negotiation, I think, for someone like Serena to have to live in a world that she was proud of making, but then at some point lost her voice in how it was going to play out. And now she's also stuck. She can't go anywhere. So how is she going to survive? And she is also trying to survive, just like Offred, just like everybody else. There's nowhere to go.
Well, I think about that third episode, which I guess I can talk about since it's already aired. I have to tread lightly here so as not to spoil anything for people. But I think about the third episode where you think that Offred is pregnant. Demeanor changes around her. Can you talk a bit about that?
Her demeanor changes when she finds out she's not pregnant.
No, I mean, within the episode, when you believe that she's pregnant, the way that you interact with her, it changes completely.
Right. Yeah, sorry, it keeps cutting out a little bit. Yeah, I think Serena's one light at the end of the tunnel, and the thing that she holds on to, is the fact that she can potentially have this baby through Offred. And until everything has been taken away from her, really, I don't know that she could ever reject the notion of Gilead and realize that this was a horrible decision. I need to rebel against this society, because she still has something to hold on to, something that will give her joy, something that will save her. And I don't know that she realizes that that's sort of a Band-Aid solution in itself. I don't think she does. But she does hold on to that. And I think there's just so much light for her, you know, at the thought of potentially getting this child one day.
And the dynamic between you and Elisabeth Moss is so interesting. I wonder what that working relationship is like between the two of you.
It's great. I'm so inspired by working with her. It's been so incredible to explore this dynamic with her, this relationship with these two women. You know, these are two women who are pitted against each other in this society where they're not supposed to connect. But somehow, you know, Lizzie and I, when we do these scenes, we find these amazing nuances of connection, you know, against the character's will almost. It's very fascinating. The other thing that's fascinating is, you know, the fact that they made Serena Joy. I get to be a younger version of Serena Joy, which is not what the book originally was. She's older, arthritic, she's with a cane. But I think when you bring her down to my age, you know, and Offred and Serena are the same age. They're childbearing. They can bear children. You know, that's the time. And but Serena is unable to, so it makes that struggle and that loss of her ability to carry a child so much more potent. And that whatever arises out of that in their dynamic, there's competition, there's jealousy, envy. There's a love, there's a hate, there's a lot of hate. You know, there's a weird sort of struggle, you know, when you throw the commander into the mix also, and vying for his attention almost, or just plain old trying to survive as a human in a situation where you can't really connect to anybody and you can't really trust anybody, but your body as a human naturally just wants to try to connect to somebody, even though it's wrong, or you don't like that person, or you know, the list goes on.
To that end, was there a moment that was particularly challenging for you as an actress? Something that you had to play that was particularly taxing on you?
You know, I like all the sort of tumultuous stuff. I've always been drawn to those kinds of scenes. It's not those scenes. I mean, a lot of people think that those scenes are often the hardest. I think for me, that wasn't the case. It was more about shutting down whatever empathy Serena Joy might have had in her and putting a lid on it, and not being able to respond in an empathetic way to Offred, or, you know, I mean, mainly to Offred, because Serena takes all her rage out on Offred in many situations and situations to come, you know, that still are going to air. You know, 6 just dropped and we still have 7, 8, 9, 10 to go. So, you know, there's that was one of the harder things, is to sort of rein it back and really tackle those scenes through Serena's stubbornness and brutality.
And within these episodes, you have the opportunity to play a character over 10 hours. Can you talk a bit about playing a character over that length of time?
Well, you know, I mean, the book was once made into a movie. I haven't seen the movie, but it seems like, you know, having 10 hours is seems a lot more thorough. Like, we really get to explore it a little bit more. I was talking to Bruce Miller the other day. I saw him, and he was saying it still wasn't enough time. There's so many things that still needed to be fleshed out. But you really get to, there's things that you don't know when you're getting into something like this. You know, there are story points you don't know as an actor, and there are story points that you do know. But I try to gather as much information as I can, so I can have some insight into what the journey is going to be and where that roller coaster is heading. So, but it's great to really be able to flesh it out in a, you know, a length of time, like 5 months, you know, what we shot this in. So you really get to sit with it. And I think the ideas behind this show are so complex, and the characters are so complex, that you really do need that time to marinate in it. And we often, you know, all the way to the end, we're having conversations and discussions about all these little intricacies and nuances. It just feels like a bottomless pit once you dive in.
Well, your show is better than the book for many other reasons. Yvonne, thank you so much. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.